Hey there, friends. Today's project was inspired by a gorgeous scrapbook page I came across, and the inspiration just kept evolving until it turned into this whimsical mixed media tag full of layered texture, soft vintage color, and dimensional details that I absolutely fell in love with. This is one of those projects where every layer adds a little more depth and character, and it all comes together into something really eye catching and unique. So let's jump right in and start creating. To start, we're going to create a watercolor background using Distress Oxides in Shabby Shutters, Twisted Citron, Cracked Pistachio, Salvage Patina, Salty Ocean, Shaded Lilac, and Wilted Violet. I'm using finger daubers that I got from scrapbook.com, but you can use whatever you have on hand to apply each color to my page. Starting with Shabby Shutters, I'm applying the ink in strips down the length of the page and then blending back into the previous color so everything melts together nicely without having harsh lines in between each colorway. Once all of the colors are down, I'm spritzing the paper with water so the inks start moving and softening into this beautiful watercolor effect. So I like to just allow the water to move in the direction it needs to go and then move it to the other side, move it down a little bit, move it to the top so that it really just softens the look and just brings all of the colors together. Now you want to be careful with this because you don't want too much movement to the point where the colors start getting muddy. So just be very careful as you're moving from side to side and up and down. You can add as much water as you'd like depending on how saturated you want the background to look. I still wanted the colors to stay vibrant and true to the original colors, just softened a little bit. Then I use my heat tool to dry up any extra moisture before going back in with intentional water splatters and droplets for even more texture and interest. Then I set that aside to fully dry for at least 24 hours. Next, we're adding stamping to the background, incorporating the same ink colors that we used earlier to create the watercolor effect. I love using different background stamps and varying patterns and sizes to create layers and movement throughout the piece. I have lace patterns, distress motifs, and little icons that I'm stamping in the coordinating Distress Oxide colors. And then I'm also going in with VersaFine Clair and Nocturne to really make some of the layers from underneath pop. The look I'm going for here is distressed and layered, not perfection. So if part of the stamped image doesn't transfer fully, honestly, that just adds to the background and makes it look even better and more vintage. Then sporadically in certain areas, I'm using Versamark ink, which is clear, with the Distress Speckled Egg embossing powder over top. So I love the glossy, almost resist-like texture this creates once melted. So you'll have on your sheet, once all of this is done, different textures and finishes. Now for one of my favorite parts is adding sparkle and shimmer. I'm adding Simon Hurley solar paste across my heart to different areas for this beautiful iridescent glow. Then I'm layering on Sizzix Prism paste with these chunky iridescent flakes and finishing with Crafter's Companion Silver Bells glitter paste. This part is definitely optional, but because we are creating a fairy type tag, all of the shimmer really makes it feel like fairy dust was sprinkled across the background. Once everything is dry, this is what the finished background looks like. It has so much texture, sparkle, and dimension already. The piece that inspired this project is this absolutely gorgeous graphic 45 paper from their Fairy Boutique collection. It's honestly stunning. This is the first page that I saw, and I've had it in my stash and I cannot touch it. I cannot cut it out. I can't do anything with it. So I want to put this in the frame. So I'm going to be cutting out the fairy image and using her as the focal point of the tag. But as I mentioned, I only have one sheet of this paper and I love it so much that I can't bring myself to cut into it. So I actually photocopied the page first so I could keep the original safe forever if need be. And I am going to be using an X-Acto knife to carefully cut out the fairy, and then I backed her onto some sturdy scrap cardstock for stability. You can use any cardstock you have on hand. I just wanted to make sure that since I use copy paper, she was going to have a little bit more weight to her. For the wings, I'm using this beautiful gold sparkle tool to make them look like they've been dusted with fairy dust. So I apply more of the Tombow liquid glue to the wings, place the tool over top, and then gently smooth more of the glue, and it's clear, it dries clear and not sticky over everything just to make sure the tool is really sealed down onto the paper. For her dress, I wanted lots of dimensions, so I'm using these green hydrangeas from Dollar Tree. I've had them in my stash for a couple years now, and I haven't used them in a project yet until now. So I separated all the petals from the stems, and using hot glue, we're creating little tiny florets, if you will. So each petal to me looks like a cross, so I have it in cross formation. I add a tiny drop of glue, fold the top half down, then add another droplet of glue and overlap the sides slightly to create dimension. So instead of folding it in half, I'm folding it about 2/3 of the way. You'll repeat the process for all of the petals, and it goes by really fast, so don't even worry about it being too time consuming. Then I start layering from the bottom up. So I start on the bottom of the dress, lay down each floret using small amounts of hot glue as I go, and work my way up toward the waist. So once the dress is complete, I'm adding gems and Tim Holtz rock candy glitter for extra sparkle and texture. And to do this, I just applied a little bit of Tombow liquid glue onto my paper and just with my finger added it, painted it on basically onto the dress, onto anywhere I wanted the glitter to hold on to. Now we're ready to build the actual tag. I'm using this nested tag die set from scrapbook.com and cutting the largest tag from heavyweight black cardstock. Then using the second largest die, I cut the watercolor background we created earlier. I attach the smaller tag onto the black base using double-sided adhesive, and I like using a bone folder to really press everything together securely. Next, I'm adding this Tim Holtz keyhole embellishment that reminds me so much of Cinderella's carriage. It originally came with different brads, but I decided to swap them out for gold instead. I just felt like it popped a little bit better. I line everything up, pierce the holes, and secure the brads from the back. Then I created these beautiful butterflies using the Treasured Garden die set from scrapbook.com. I cut them out of holographic papers and gold mirror cardstock to give them lots of shine and movement. And once they're cut, I bend the wings upward slightly so they look even more lifelike. I also hot glued down a little scrap of the same gold tool from the fairy wings and added my sentiment, "In the garden, she remembered the beauty of this life." I pieced this sentiment together using the Tim Holtz clipping sticker book, just choosing words and phrases that felt right for the project. Then I attach my fairy to the bottom left corner of the tag using just regular glue. And for the top loop, I'm threading through some vintage lace. I temporarily remove the brad to make it easier to thread through before securing it back into place. Now all that's left is adding the butterflies so they look like they're fluttering upward across the tag. For the final touch, I'm scattering a few holographic sequins around the piece for even more sparkle and glimmer. And here she is. I've lovingly named my fairy Cassandra. I absolutely love how one scrapbook page inspired this entire project, and honestly, I already want to make more tags like this. If you'd like to see more projects like this, definitely let me know in the comments. I always love hearing your ideas and inspiration too. I hope this project inspires you to create your own magical fairy tag. The backgrounds alone are so much fun to experiment with, and there are endless color combinations and textures you could try and come up with. It's also the perfect excuse to pull out some of those background stamps you may not even use very often, or if you've used them at all. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you all back here in my crafty corner very soon. Bye, friends.